My name is Michael Carter. I'm 42 years old, and I've served in the United States Army for over 2 decades. Currently, I hold the rank of Lieutenant Colonel, and until recently, I was assigned to Logistics Command with joint oversight on financial routing between the Department of Defense and a major private contractor, Stratcor Systems. It's not the kind of work that gets you medals or photo ops, but it's the kind of job that keeps things running, that keeps soldiers equipped and programs funded. My responsibility wasn't just to sign forms or push paper. I was the final stop in a complex authorization chain that connected military readiness to vendor accountability. The systems I maintained weren't flashy, but they were solid. I knew where every number landed, which link in the chain could hold under pressure, and which ones would snap. Over time, I became the one name everyone trusted when things needed to be verified, secured, and legally airtight. I didn't get there by accident. I read every contract line by line, cross-checked every procurement clause, and never signed anything I didn't understand. In this field, shortcuts get people killed or indicted. I chose structure over speed, precision over showmanship. That kind of discipline didn't win popularity contests, but it earned quiet respect. My team called me the spine of the system. Not because I talked tough or yelled in meetings, but because when something broke, they knew I'd be there. Not blaming, not panicking, just fixing. Stratcor was our largest defense contractor. Billions flowed through its systems every fiscal year. And with those billions came risk, fraud, delay, mismanagement. That's where I came in. My name wasn't at the top of the press releases, but it was hard-coded into every major transaction for one reason: protection. I never chased credit. I never asked for more than what was required. But I did believe in one thing above all: systems exist for a reason. You respect them, or you pay the price. I didn't know then just how high that price would be, but I'd find out soon enough. They introduced him on a Monday morning, right after the weekly risk briefing. The name was familiar: Brian Miles, son of General Harold Miles, Supreme Logistics Commander for the Eastern Operations Sector. I'd seen the name on family guest lists at command banquets, but I never expected to hear it read off with a job title. Strategic Advisor, they said. No clear jurisdiction, no defined role, just a loose directive to support innovation and modern thinking. He was barely 30, clean-shaven, too much hair product, and the kind of self-assurance you only get when failure has never cost you anything. The room went quiet when he stepped in, like everyone was waiting to be told how seriously to take him. He shook hands like a politician and talked like one too. First meeting, he dropped terms like agile modernization and layered modular synergies. I watched the junior officers nod along like they were taking notes. I kept my arms folded, listening. I'd been in this game too long to be impressed by buzzwords. The first thing he did was question the procurement chain. Not the delays, not the risk gaps, but the naming convention. He said it sounded too rigid, wanted to rebrand it to Stratflow because it had more energy. He even pitched a new logo for it. That's when I realized this wasn't just a young man trying to learn. He was here to perform. He came into the war room uninvited 2 days later, laptop open, screen blinding, said, "We needed more velocity in our contract response windows." I asked what metrics he used. He said instinct. I looked at the colonel beside me and saw the same blank stare I was giving back. This wasn't about improving systems. This was theater. He dismantled our vendor vetting unit next, said it was too siloed, replaced it with a team called Partner Pulse. No structure, no documentation, just a Slack channel and 3 civilians with MBAs and no military clearance. I caught one of them Googling what a JTRS module was during a live audit. The worst part wasn't the incompetence, it was the condescension. Brian talked down to people who'd spent decades keeping the mission funded and the troops supplied. He treated the war room like a tech startup, moved chairs around, wanted a meditation corner. Even brought in an aroma diffuser one morning, said it was for stress optimization. Command said nothing, not officially. There were whispers, of course, but no resistance. Everyone knew who his father was. And in the military, sometimes that's all it takes to make people forget what rank really means. He walked through protocols like they were suggestions, deleted approval steps without reading the downstream impacts. He called them friction points. I called them security. One afternoon, I found out he disabled the 2-factor authentication on our invoice portal because he said it slowed down ideation. That was the moment I started documenting everything. Not because I was afraid, because I knew where this would end. I'd seen this movie before. When process is treated like the enemy doesn't need to fire a shot. He scheduled something called Feedback Fridays and made attendance optional but mandatory, brought in donuts and asked people to rank morale on a whiteboard. Someone drew a sad face and he laughed, said, "We should gamify engagement." I didn't laugh. I filed it away. He told the team he was going to recalibrate legacy workflows. When I asked him which workflows, he said all of them. No assessment, no analysis, just a bold slide deck and a half smile. I looked at the slide titles later. They were copy-pasted from a blog about digital disruption in pet food logistics. The supply delay reports started stacking up. No one blamed him out loud. They blamed the system. But I knew better. He was the disruption, not the solution. And the longer he stayed, the more invisible I became. Not obsolete, just quietly ignored. Like, stability was the old world and chaos had a better PR team. I stayed quiet because I had to. Because if you speak too soon, they call it resistance. But if you wait, if you keep the logs and track the fallouts, the truth reveals itself. And when that happens, there's no shouting needed, just structure. And I know structure. It was a Friday, 5 minutes before close. I was on a secure call with NATO liaisons finalizing compliance documents for a joint munitions transfer. Everything had to be signed, sealed, and uploaded by Monday, or the funding cycle would stall. My screen lit up. Slack ping. Brian Miles invited you to a sync session. No context. Just a blocky subject line. Strategic momentum. 5 o'clock sharp. I didn't move. Didn't click. I already knew it was pointless. These meetings weren't about operations. They were about optics. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed. I ignored it. It buzzed again. I let it ring out. 3rd call, then a 4th. I picked up out of sheer irritation. I didn't even say hello. Just told him he had 2 minutes. He didn't waste them. Launched right into a tantrum. Said I was undermining him. Said I didn't respect the chain of vision. Not command, vision. I let him finish. I told him plainly I was busy with real work. That whatever protein shake meeting he had could wait until lives and millions weren't on the line. Then I told him the truth, that he was not my superior, that his job title meant nothing in the real trenches of logistics. He exploded, said I was done, fired, effective immediately, said don't come back Monday. Then he hung up. I didn't argue. I didn't call JAG. I didn't storm down the hallway demanding protocol. I closed the laptop and stood up. The call with NATO still open in another tab. I finished the briefing like nothing happened, my voice steady, my notes clear. No one on that call ever knew I'd just been removed from my post. When it ended, I walked out of the secure zone, left my ID on the desk. No box, no ceremony, no raised voices, just silence. That kind of silence that's louder than shouting. I passed the command hallway, nodded to the security officer, and stepped into the open air like I was just going out for lunch. Not one person stopped me. Not one person knew, because it hadn't hit them yet. The damage hadn't started to ripple, but I felt it already, in my chest, in my gut, like a pressure shift before a storm. The thing that broke me wasn't the firing. I've faced worse. It was the way it was done. Over a phone call, while I was holding the line for an international transfer. While the guy drinking kale smoothies and quoting startup blogs decided I was disposable. It wasn't ego. It was principle. No HR, no process. Just an impulsive kid playing with matches in a room built from code, trust, and protocol. He didn't understand what I was holding together, and he didn't care. I got in my truck, turned the key, and drove. Didn't head home right away. I parked near a quiet overlook just outside base and sat there, watching the sunset cut through the clouds like a scalpel. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just breathed, because I knew one thing. This wasn't over, not even close. That night, I opened my laptop on the kitchen table. No fanfare, no rage, just a black coffee and quiet. I logged into the internal oversight dashboard. My credentials still worked. No revocation notice, no alert from command. My name hadn't been removed from the system. I clicked through folders like muscle memory, compliance chains, disbursement logs, vendor contracts. I knew what I was looking for. Clause 7.9. I remembered it from 2 years ago. Final approval authority for all Tier 1 defense expenditures. Must be verified and signed by a designated oversight officer. It was buried in Section D of the funding agreement between the Army and Strat Corps. My name was typed next to that clause, stamped, initialed, dated. Not one of those signatures had been transferred. I never delegated it. Not because I didn't trust my team, but because I knew what this clause meant. You don't hand off the keys to the vault and hope someone else reads the fine print. I sat back and stared at the screen. It was all still there. Every system, every signature chain, every checkpoint routed through my account. Brian hadn't even thought to update the roles. He was too busy running innovation syncs and throwing around words like velocity and frictionless alignment. That's the difference between noise and structure. One disappears when the lights go out. The other holds the roof up. I didn't send any warnings. I didn't forward the clause to legal or try to get back in the building. I just archived the files, encrypted the backups, and labeled them with one word: leverage. Some people think silence means weakness, that walking away is surrender. But I've been in enough rooms to know better. Sometimes silence is strategy. Sometimes patience is armor. They thought I was gone. That firing me meant erasing me. But they forgot something simple. You don't just unplug a system that took years to build, especially when the man who built it still holds the password. I spent the next few days in sweatpants, watching dashboards light up like a Christmas tree. At first, everything looked fine on the surface. Emails flying, memos circulating. Brian's team even posted a Slack message celebrating what they called a historic simplification of procurement flow. They had no idea the fuel line was already cut. The first red flag hit Monday morning. A vendor invoice bounced. No signature, no override, no explanation. They tried to resubmit through a shared login. It failed again. By noon, 5 more had collapsed. I watched each one choke on the same thing, Clause 7.9. Brian didn't flinch. He posted a GIF of AI, rocket launch, said it was proof of progress. His new compliance team clapped back with fire emojis. I almost felt sorry for them. Almost. The fun part was seeing how long it took before anyone asked real questions. 2 days in, a junior analyst pinged the wrong Slack channel. "Is Michael Carter still our oversight signatory?" Brian replied with a meme. "The dog in the burning house. This is fine." It wasn't fine. Behind the scenes, the logs were hemorrhaging errors. Approvals stalled, budgets froze. Procurement flagged gaps in every flowchart they touched. But Brian kept his foot on the gas, held town halls, gave pep talks, reposted thought leadership quotes about breaking legacy habits. Meanwhile, I watched engineers send each other messages like, "Do you remember where the Q3 compliance templates are?" I didn't answer. I archived them. Every question, every panic ping, every back-channel ask, they all got filed, because sometimes the best response is no response. They had cut me loose without the paperwork, left me in the system, and now the system was answering for me. I didn't sabotage a thing. I didn't even touch the controls. All I did was let gravity do its work. Brian wanted velocity. He got it, straight into the wall. They called the meeting for Friday. Full board, Pentagon reps, legal, investors from both coasts. Even Stratcor's founder flew in from Zurich. They thought it was a formality. Sign the next milestone release. Push through another $40 million in defense funding. It didn't go that way. The agenda looked clean until halfway through. That's when someone from legal flipped to the back of the funding packet, quietly read out Clause 7.9. The room shifted. Phones paused. Fingers stopped tapping on glass. Every major disbursement must be signed by the oversight officer listed on record. That officer's name was still Michael Carter. Brian leaned forward, fake calm. He said I was no longer part of the team, that I'd transitioned out, that surely someone else had picked up the authority. The investor's lawyer didn't blink. "Then you violated protocol. Funding is frozen." The silence was thick, the kind that lands like a fist on a table. Stratcor's CFO tried to pivot, said it was just a clerical delay, promised a quick fix. The Pentagon rep interrupted, said no payment could go through without legal continuity. That clause wasn't optional. It was hard-coded by federal regulation. Brian stood, raised his voice. He tried to wave it off with jargon. Talked about restructuring, modernization, even said the system was outdated. The lawyer from DC shut him down in one sentence. "Then why didn't you update it?" Nobody had an answer. The lead investor stood, closed their laptop, spoke without raising their voice. "We're freezing disbursements until this is corrected. No signature, no funds. 40 million locked in place." Just like that, the air left the room. No one clapped. No one shouted. It was worse than that. It was quiet. The kind of quiet that hits when money stops moving and reputation starts bleeding. Somewhere across town, I was sipping my second coffee, watching the dashboard lag under pressure. I didn't need a live feed of that room. I knew exactly how it felt, because the system they ignored was finally speaking, and every missing signature screamed my name. After the board meeting, everything stalled. The system didn't just slow down, it locked up. Procurement requests jammed. Compliance reviews flagged empty chains. Disbursement approvals failed across every department. And then the emails started. At first, just 1 or 2. Questions, requests, soft inquiries from mid-level managers pretending they just needed a quick check-in. Then the tone shifted. Subject lines got bolder, more urgent. Leadership updates, operational disruptions, strategic priorities. They didn't say it directly, but every message was the same. We need you. Only you. Please fix it. I didn't answer a single one. I archived every message. I watched as senior officers forwarded compliance memos with my name pre-filled. I saw generals CC'd on threads they didn't understand. StratCorps tried to patch the oversight gap with autofill signatures. The system rejected them. Clause 7.9 didn't care about panic. They even tried to backdate a memo. I recognized the formatting, same form I helped design. But the timestamp didn't match. The signature wasn't mine. And the system blocked it. You can't fake structure. Not when it was built to resist fraud. By week's end, my inbox had over 200 unread messages. Legal, finance, command, some begged, some threatened. One just wrote, "Please." All I did was hit archive. Then, without warning, Brian disappeared. His name vanished from the internal org chart. His Slack handle deactivated. No announcement, no farewell post. Just silence. They thought leadership was about noise, about charisma, about buzzwords. But the system didn't care about any of that. It cared about integrity, continuity, names that actually held weight. And mine was the only one that still did. The invitation came quietly. No press, no parade. Just a direct call from a Pentagon liaison asking if I was willing to return. This time, not to operate the system, but to rebuild it. From the ground up. They didn't offer a title. They offered trust. I didn't ask for anything in return. No perks, no spotlight. I just asked one question. Who's on the team? When I arrived at the secure site, there were no banners. Just a clean desk. A single folder with my name on it. Inside, the directive. Restructure the oversight architecture for future defense contracts. This time, do it your way. I read it once. Nodded. Then started laying out the framework like I'd never left. There was no ego in the room, just clarity, real professionals, not legacy hires, not someone's son playing pretend in a grown man's seat. These people had scars, had history, understood the stakes. I built the chain lean, logical, auditable, unbreakable. Every checkpoint had context. Every permission had weight. Not a single piece could be gamed by charm or birthright. And then, at the end of my first week, I walked to the wall of the new command room. I pinned up a printout someone had saved from StratCorps' internal system. It was one of Brian's old Slack messages, bolded, underlined. I'm the general's son. I call, you answer. Under it, I placed a small, sticky note. Clean handwriting, black ink, 2 words, not anymore. Then I went back to work.